Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm excited about today's show. I'm excited. Every now and then we get to have on a reverend or pastor or someone who leads in the church, and I love when that happens. And today we got Reverend Schuler, and Reverend Schuler is well. He's got a book. It says it all. God always wins. I don't know what else to say. When we look at what's happening around the world today, and we look at the mess that we're in, and we look at the disastrous nature of things, the globalists, the child trafficking, the poison death shots we're giving our kids, all the different things we're doing. One of the things that you got to remember is we know who wins in the end. We always know who's going to win. So I'm very excited to talk to Reverend Schuler. He's a big shot. He's got a wonderful church out in Orange County. And here's the thing that's amazing. Is we got a guy out of Orange County who's actually, now Orange County's good, but it's California. So you find a guy in California that's willing to speak truth and to, do this sort of stuff. There's a handful, and we got, Pastor Dave, and we got a few good friends out of California that we love. But it is not a state where you find a whole lot of God wins and God first stuff. So it's wonderful that we still have the leaders out there with the courage to push, and I look forward to talking to the good Reverend today. Before I do, how about James Comey? I mean, seriously, you got the former director of the FBI out there, and I'm going to ask the Reverend how he feels about this, but you got the former director of the FBI out there making threats of violence against the sitting president. What, he didn't know? I like how he took this down, took his post down and said, oops, I just didn't know. I didn't realize there was an issue here. I mean, at the end of the day, that might be one of the most absurd things I've ever heard. They're going to investigate him, it sounds like, and it's thoroughly warranted. I think they should do the same thing to him that they did to Roger Stone. I think that would be fair. So, anyways, before we get going on the show, let me remind you, please consider giving to us. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Please become a monthly donor. $20 a month or whatever you can give. It really makes a huge difference. That keeps us fighting, keeps us going. We got a lot of fighting to do. And, we can't do it for free. We've got to feed our families. We've got to pay. Producer Andrea continually complains that she wants to make more than minimum wage, and I don't understand that. But I keep telling her, what about the tips? And she says there are none. But yeah, we need your support. So please, GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. And also, don't forget to go to TomRenz.com. Always TomRenz.com. You got to type it in, TomRenz.com. You can't find it by searching Tom Renz. Google will only show you hit pieces on me by the mainstream media if you search Tom Renz. So make sure you type TomRenz.com. Check out our shop. Go to partners and affiliates, and you'll see all of our different guys here. But today I want to talk about Block Trust IRA, one of our favorite new sponsors. We love these guys. Block Trust IRA, wonderful, wonderful group. And let me tell you, while the corrupt federal elite, these guys they've been building their wealth. They've been using crypto. They've been using all this stuff. And crypto isn't going away, by the way. Hardworking Americans have been left behind on this. Bitcoin is up. I don't even know what Bitcoin is now. But crypto isn't going away. It's going to be there forever. President Trump supports crypto. It isn't going away. So I want to tell you about Block Trust IRA. They're bringing access to crypto to real Americans, and they're doing it in a responsible way. It's not meme coin. It's not crap like that. It's IRAs. It's actual investment retirement accounts. It's a real thing. So I've partnered with Block Trust IRA because their mission aligns with President Trump's Make America Great Again agenda. They want to smash down these barriers between loyal patriots and financial freedom they deserve. So they have an Animus AI trading platform, which is really, really solid. It monitors the market all the time. And it puts in these super advanced, complicated crypto strategies that are, frankly, a little bit beyond my scope. I'm just a dumb lawyer, as y'all know. But these are impressive. I mean, these guys are just booming. There's a reason. These guys are actually named #1 crypto technology platform by Bitcoin Magazine. 1,500 competitors, and they were #1. So these guys are rock stars. They love patriots. They work with guys like me. Whether you're a teacher, truck driver, small business owner, retiree, watch inflation, eat away at your 401k, you want to look at Block Trust IRA's Advanced Animus AI program. It gives everybody the same chances that the elites have. Right now, they're telling me that their clients are seeing over 250% returns on their investments in many cases. That's crazy. Uh, Military grade security. Investors are protected. They're insured. Wonderful, wonderful thing. Don't wait. Visit timerunscrypto.com. You can get there through timeruns.com. If you go to timeruns.com and you just click right here, you look here, it'll take you to our let me show you timeruns.com. You have to click right here. And it will take you to our partners, Block Trust IRA. And you can also go to timerunscrypt.com if you want to. But get there and get access to this. You need this as a part of your retirement account. This isn't CBDCs, folks. This is actually secure crypto. So I'm fighting CBDCs. I'm not okay with that in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, we can't. The crypto fight is crypto is coming. That's the way it's going to be. So we just got to make sure that they aren't CBDCs. All right. Without further ado, let me bring in my brand shiny new friend, Robert Schuler. How you doing today, sir?
I'm terrific. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm honored to meet you. And when I see a guy who writes a book, God Always Wins, I'm like, cool. This is a guy I need to talk to. And then I see it's a guy that's actually a reverend and a guy who's in California, and it's like, okay, this might be a guy. So
there are a few reverends in California, yes.
Well, there's a few that are rock stars out there. Y'all are either rock stars or kind of terrible. It doesn't seem like you got a lot of the middle of the road stuff. We saw during COVID, there were a few of you guys that fought real hard. And we, have continued to fight for your flocks. And which is an interesting thing to me because, I've read that book a few times and, Christ didn't mince any words. Being a shepherd ain't always easy. It requires a little bit of effort. And you guys, when I find a guy that's willing to actually do that job, which means in part, shepherd's job is not only to lead them to the gates, but also to defend them against the wolves. And so I'm really honored to meet you. What can you tell me about that? How do you look at this?
Well, when COVID happened, that really separated the sheep from the goats. And I looked at what was going on, and it's like everybody's a goat. I can't believe this. And so I mentor a half a dozen young pastors. When they said you have to close your churches for 2 weeks, right? It was just 2 weeks to flatten out the curve. Yep. I said it's not going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be at least 6 months. And here in the state of California, if Gavin Newsom has his way, it's going to be a year and a half. And I said, here's what you do. It's real simple. You go out, you buy a radio transmitter for $150 on Amazon, and it'll be delivered to your house in a few days. And it's a FM radio transmitter, and it has a quarter-mile range, no license required, and you just go out in your parking lot, and everybody comes and stays in their cars, and they wave at each other. I mean, this is the beginning of spring. It works. It's great. And I was very familiar with that because I grew up in a drive-in church. My dad, when he came to California in 1955, couldn't find any place to start a church. We started in a drive-in. And he continued to meet in a drive-in for 5 years. This is a drive-in theater where people would go, and I don't know if you have drive-in theaters in Ohio, but
not many, but we had a few of them.
So they have these little mounds, rolling mounds that cars would go and park on. It would aim the car up in the air so they could see the screen better in the drive-in theater. And then in the 50s, they would have these little stands with speakers on it. One car pulls it in and puts it on the passenger side, and the other car pulls in and puts it on the driver's side. And so you have that's how the speaker system worked. And so then I knew all about that. I grew up that way. In 1955, I was a newborn. And so the first 5 years of my life, I remember being in that drive-in quite a bit. And so from there, my dad created the world's first walk-in drive-in church. It was designed by Richard Neutra. And Richard Neutra was very influential as far as his whole architectural style of biorealism, it's called, where you bring the outside in, and that humanity really flourishes in the outdoors, and therefore you want to bring the outdoors in, and that's how that humanity becomes happier and more beautiful that way. That was Richard Neutris. So we had this walk-in, drive-in church with one side all glass so the cars could look inside, and then a balcony where my dad, with big sliding doors, my dad could walk out and wave at all the cars from the balcony. And we had that till 1980 when the Crystal Cathedral was built. So a drive-in church I didn't question for a minute, but yet every single young man pastor that I consulted with at that time, because I was semi-retired, I was spending most of my time in Mexico and doing some missions down there. And I first heard of COVID, I was down in Mexico, and the first thing I heard was, there's no toilet paper in the stores. I go, what? There's no toilet papers in the store. What does that have to do with COVID? What does that have to do with the tea in China? And there was lots of toilet paper in Mexico. So we would always take suitcases down there filled with clothes and stuff to give away. And so we always came back with empty suitcases. So we go, let's fill the suitcases with toilet paper. And everything else. So we did that. We came in and we go,
you're trafficking toilet paper.
The grocery store. Sure enough, there's no toilet paper. And we're looking at people just lined up with their carts filled with all kinds of junk. I mean, we're talking, my wife took a picture of it because she's a nutritionist. And the guy's cart was filled with Oreos and Doritos, all this junk. I mean, bound and determined. If there's any viruses around, I guarantee he got one. Eating like that, your body doesn't stand a chance, of fighting off a virus. So my wife and I had been involved uniquely. We were just, God gifted us with this, in this amazing way of knowing and realizing that this whole COVID stuff was baloney. And we realized that because of we had witnessed, and I had witnessed actually even before I got married, I witnessed as a teenager the baloney in the whole medical system, because it has been going on for decades. Decades. The medical system in America is not a health system. They talk about health, and it has nothing to do with health. In America, the mainline medical model is managed sickness. They want to keep you sick. But they want the numbers to look good so you don't die. So they manage your sickness through drugs, and as a result of that, you continue to live, and they continue to profit. So that's been the system, and I discovered this actually as a teenager of all things.
How did you find it?
So as a teenager, I had cystic acne really bad. I mean, we had these horrible boils all over my back, and sometimes it would be on my face and my neck, and it was horrendous. So my mother would take me to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist would put me under a sun lamp and burn my face, first that side, then this side, and then my chest and my back. I spent an hour in there, and then he would take a cortisone shot, and he would shoot this not with a needle, but like with a shotgun. He would shoot this little shotgun on each boil, and man, that hurt. And he would do that. He would do that to like 10, 12 boils on my back or wherever they were, and then they'd heal. But the next week I was right back in there again doing the same thing, and I did that every week. Never once did they ask me about my diet. And so I'm sitting there at my barber, and my barber goes, Well, Robert, have you ever thought of quitting eating so much milk? I was drinking like a couple gallons of milk at that time. That was I didn't know any better. My parents were both raised on a farm, and they drank milk all the time. And so I get this milk, but it's not the milk you got on the farm, because on the farm it's raw, it's natural. You had to scoop it up so that the cream isn't, you don't get a cup full of cream. And so I'm buying homogenized, pasteurized milk. I'm drinking, I don't know, maybe a couple gallons a day. I'd have a couple, 2 or 3 glasses for breakfast. At lunch, I'd get 3 or 4 cartons. And then after school, I'd have a few more. And then before I went to bed, I'd have 2 or 3 more glasses of milk. I don't know how much that is, a gallon, 2 gallons of milk.
Yeah.
And my barber said, why don't you quit drinking milk, see what happens? What does that have to do with anything? He goes, well, hey, give it a try. So I was like, okay. So I quit drinking milk. My cystic acne cleared up immediately.
No way.
I couldn't believe it. I'm going, what's the matter with these dermatologists? Why didn't they tell me? I mean, these are the professionals. These are the guys who know. My barber takes care of my acne for me as opposed to my dermatologist.
That seems about right.
So right away, it just kind of, this isn't right. But, I'm a teenager. It's like, okay, that's over. Great. Let's go on. And I stay in the medical model. So then the next thing that happens to me is I'm looking at my cholesterol levels because in the early 80s, the drug companies came out with Lipitor, your statin drugs. And their marketing ploy was, first, we're going to create in order to sell the Lipitor, first we have to build the fire in the backyard before we can sell the fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. You got to make sure that there's some burning before everybody needs to worry about buying the solution.
Nobody's going to buy a fire extinguisher when you're going door to door unless they have a fire in their backyard. So what they did is they spent their marketing plan. You spent a year and a half building a nice fire in the backyard. And so every time you turned on the television to CBS, ABC, the morning shows, everything had an article and something going on about cholesterol. You got to make sure your LDLs, your HDLs, and there's this mathematical equation to make sure they're just right. And if your HDLs are too high, you're going to die. You're going to get a heart attack.
Absolutely, you are.
But that's what
according to them.
And they did that for like a year and a half. And I went to the doctor. He says, it's a little high, but not bad. So okay. Then I went back and he goes, yeah, it's a little higher. So then I'm getting concerned. I'm going, and this is before the drugs come out. So I started studying. I go, what is it? I'm a researcher, just by instinct, the research. I said, so what causes cholesterol in the first place? And it's a liver. Your liver produces 75% of your cholesterol, and only 25% comes from your diet. Yep. So I'm going, well, that means if I can cleanse my liver, my cholesterol should be good. So I did what the Bible says in order to get well, as opposed to managing sickness. And to get well, you pray and you fast. So I did a 3-day fast. I went back and what happens when you fast is your liver, which is the most resilient organ you have in your whole body. It will heal itself. And it completely healed itself. And instead of having a cholesterol level of 220 and growing, it was down in the 80s, 180, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Better than ever. So I'm going, cool. And then shortly after that, lo and behold, everywhere you went, Lipitor, 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 we were saving the world. But guess what? They didn't meet their marketing goals.
No.
So what does the CDC do to help? I can't remember who makes it, which company makes it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
They all have statin drugs now.
Oh.
But so what they did is they lowered the 140 level, which is the healthy level, down to 200.
Well,
and now they made all their marketing goals. They did all this. So
everybody's sick, so they've got a cure. You're right. So that's it's super refreshing because I got to be honest with you. You the way you pick this up, and you're a reverend, right? So yeah, I find lawyers that know this. I find doctors that know this, but I don't find a whole lot of people in the church that have picked up that way. I mean, we've got a few leaders that are awake and aware and have stood up, but your firsthand experience and knowledge just shows the truth of what. And you found it before me, honestly. So I was in 2019. Here's my confession to the good reverend. Right. 2019, I was pro-vax. I was pro all big pharma. I thought it was great. And I was a Limbaugh conservative. I love Rush. I still do.
Oh yeah.
And I thought I was awake to things. Then COVID hit. And
Did
I was
Russ
working.
ever talk about vaccines at all?
No, not so much. Not so much. It just wasn't something he got into. But
Yeah.
it's much like me. It was just something that you just never really questioned, right? Why would you question it? Because these guys are, I actually got in an argument with back in the day, long time ago. My wife told me it was talking about vaccines and autism, and I told her that's nonsense. I said it's gobbledygook. It's not a real thing. How could a whole industry be corrupt? Enter 2020. And and it's exactly what
it can't be corrupt. Yeah.
well, and I happened to be working when COVID hit. I was working on a master's in health science. So I actually was studying this stuff, and I saw firsthand the lies. They're telling us, oh, it's a crisis, it's this, it's that. I mean, at no point was there ever anything that suggested that the case fatality rate was going to be anywhere near the original SARS or MERS. Everybody knew this was a nothing burger, but they lied. And then you had the protocols and everything else to just create more fear and endless news cycles. It was 100% manufactured, 100% fraud. But, a lot of people, to this day, we still see people wearing masks. People who are so damaged from that.
Airplane, I always see at least a half a dozen people. Almost
where was I? I travel so much. I don't know. I was somewhere. I looked over. I was in the car. I look over and see someone in their car by themselves still wearing a mask, and I'm like, wow.
You just gotta shake your head, right? You just gotta say,
yeah. It just so. I mean, that's amazing that you were, and you were able to pick that up because it took something as big as COVID to wake me up, and I think that's the truth for a lot of people. And
I was only awake on the captured medical side. I knew that the FDA was captured. I knew that the CDC was captured, but it took me longer to wake up to. You mean the FBI is captured? No.
Yeah.
Same. What do you mean fake news? Come on, the news isn't fake. They just report what's happening.
They just showed me a clip.
How can that be fake?
They just showed me a clip. It's out. You're just saying it's out of context. But no, it really is.
The deep state. What are you talking about? The deep state. I understand. Yeah, okay, the medical stuff, and yet I think what happens is a lot of people come in from different angles, from different areas, because there's lots of spokes, and people take different. So all roads lead to Rome, right? Yeah. So just like where are you coming from? What road how did you get here? And for me, I got here on the medical side, and I understood. So I shared a little bit about what I was doing there as far as the medical, but then I vaccinated all my children. They were fully vaccinated until my 2-year-old, my youngest child, had a severe vaccine reaction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He had his MMR, and his legs swelled up, and he cried for 2 days, and then immediately after that he had asthma attacks, and we almost lost him. We took him to the emergency room twice.
I'm sorry.
Flu, and it was really, really sad. And it was, and his pediatrician had him on antibiotics prophylactically, so he's on a constant antibiotic for his ear infections. And when we got to the point where he said you have to take all his toys out of his room and all of his, and we're going, there's something wrong here. This is not jive. This does not make any sense. And a friend of a friend told my wife, why don't you take him to a chiropractor? It can only help. And we did. And that completely changed our life.
Yeah.
He never had another asthma attack after that. He got off all of his antibiotics. And to this day, he's extremely healthy. He's athletic, and he is a chiropractor. This was in the late 80s. I want to say, and so by 88, 89, we were actually supporting Barbara Lowe Fisher. You know that name?
I know the name.
She is the godmother of the whole vaccine freedom movement. And the name of her organization was the NVIC, the National. NVI vaccine. But basically the whole concept was
Injury Coalition, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was NVIC.
Yeah.
And it was for vaccine freedom. In other words, give us informed consent and let us make a decision with informed consent. So in the state of California at that time, we had a philosophical exemption that anyone could fill out. It was hidden. It was hidden to the point where if you said I don't want to vaccinate my child, the principals of the school said, well, we can't let you in our school then. And you had to go, and you had to go and then bring the principal the laws and say, here's the law right here. Then here's my exemption, and you have to enroll my child. And they just kind of, okay, So we had to be informed, and since we did, because we quit vaccinating our kids at that time.
Yeah.
And so that's how we got involved. Again, uniquely involved, and God did this to me so that when COVID hit in 2020, and I'm consoling these, I'm not consoling, I'm counseling and I'm mentoring these 6 pastors, and none of them will keep their doors open. They're all closing the doors, and for different reasons. And I said, this is ludicrous. And I said, if none of you will do it, then I'm going to do it, because we couldn't get back to Mexico anymore. The flights were all canceled, and we couldn't get down there. So, okay, I guess we're coming out of retirement, Donna. Donna's my wife. And we bought the transmitter for $180 off Amazon. And we found a parking lot. It wasn't ours, and a friend of ours let us use his parking lot. And on Easter Sunday, so we're now talking not 2 weeks to flatten out the curve, but 4 weeks later, we are the only place in Orange County, a population of 3.2 million people, the only place anyone could go to church.
That's Easter. Awesome and sad.
But to me, it's more sad than awesome. But we had the parking lot's filled, of course, and then the LA Times is there, and the Orange County Register, and everybody in Orange County who's reporting on Easter is there. Look at this. Look what's happening. And so it was a surreal event, is the best way to say it, because everyone's buying into this. They're closing their churches, and the churches didn't open then until May. The middle of May, people like John MacArthur opened his church, and he's in Los Angeles, and he paid a heavy price for doing that.
Yes, he did.
He paid a heavy price for doing that. And there was other pastors who, outside of Orange County, there was a pastor in Riverside County who had a drive-in church going, and the sheriff came along and ticketed all the cars in the drive-in church. Everybody who came to that church that Sunday got a $200 ticket.
Jeez, oh, Pete. I was trying to remember, Reverend, where, because I knew your name, and I was trying to remember, and I remember now you being one of the guys that fought back, because back in those days, so I was the first and kind of the only attorney for a long time fighting this stuff, and I did a lot of work, and I trained a lot of the other attorneys, and I remember, because there are a lot of people, I mean, there just wasn't anybody doing it, and certainly not many people doing it well. And so I had a lot of people calling me that wanted me to help them. And a bunch of the churches out in California, parishioners from the churches, wanted me to come out and help them. The problem is I'm not licensed out there. There wasn't anything, there wasn't a whole lot I could do. And at that time, we were struggling to find any attorneys that would do anything. So normally, if I want to go help in another state, I find local counsel and I work with them through them, and that's okay. I can do that. But in this case, with the COVID issue, when it started, there were nobody that was willing to do anything. I mean, when I filed the first case in Ohio,
I wish you would have contacted me back then, because
I wish I would have known you.
I know. I wish we would have met then. I was working with Lee Dundas.
She's a friend of mine, a great friend of me. I love Lee.
Lee and I took Lee Dundas and 2 other women to DC in February of 2020.
Okay.
The first week of February. And the reason we went there was to lobby against vaccine mandates, because we were witnessing, we had, the state of California lost all exemptions. We lost our philosophical exemption.
Yep.
Senator Pan, oh gosh, Senator Pan.
Yeah.
He's a California senator. You remember that name?
I remember him having something to do with the exemption issue. I remember that.
So here's the ironic part of Senator Pan. Jesus takes his apostles up to Caesarea Philippi. Oh. And it's at Caesarea Philippi where he asks his apostles, and this is outside of a Judaic atmosphere. So he has kind of left Israel in effect and went off into the Roman world, way up north, and it's beautiful up there. And he's teaching his apostles. He says, "Who do you say that I am?" Or who do they say that I am? And they said, "Well, some say you're a prophet, some say you're Elijah, some say you're so-and-so," and I can't remember all the details. And he comes back and he says, "But who do you say that I am?" And with that, Peter jumps up and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And he says, "Simon Bar-Jonah, you are now Petros, you are rock, and upon this rock I'll build my church." So his whole church is built on the confession of us proclaiming that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. Yeah. And he does it in Caesarea Philippi. Here's what's important about this. Caesarea Philippi, and he may have actually been overlooking the temple. Caesarea Philippi is the home of the god Pan. The god Pan is half goat, half man. Okay. You probably can picture that. Yep. His lower half is a goat, his upper half is a man. He has little horns that go back to that, and he plays the pan flute, right? That's where the pan flute comes from the god Pan. That's where we get the word panic. That's where we get the word pandemonium. That's where we get the word pandemic. Now it is Senator Pan. Now this is the irony.
Some irony there.
This is just overwhelming. It is Senator Pan in the state of California who is the head and the leader and the foremost dictator in the state in using medical freedom. He is a doctor, an MD, and he uses his MD status to create a scientism in the state of California to overrun anything that anyone wants to believe. And as a result of that, we no longer have any freedom. We're one of 5 states in the United States that have no religious exemption, no medical exemption. In fact, if you have a child who's been vaccine injured, and you're afraid for you have younger siblings that they're requiring to vaccinate, they tell you still cannot. If you still are required to vaccinate your children, you just take them to the hospital in case they go into anaphylactic shock.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
There's a point at which you go, it's so stupid, it's unbelievable.
Well, there's a point, and we've reached this point in some cases.
We have.
But we haven't got there far enough.
Not always wins, amen.
Well, but we've reached a point where ultimately, and you and I talked about this off air before the show. Yeah. God will help you if you're willing to take the steps, but you got to help yourself, right? So you got to take the steps, you got to take the plunge, and you've got to have the courage to take the plunge. And so we've reached the point, and we reached it during COVID, where there were people that finally said, no, just no, I'm not doing it. I'm not participating. Yeah. I did that real early. No, I ain't wearing that dang mask. By the way, it's on my desk, so I never forget. And I will never forget. And we will eventually see justice. I just
threw a lot of those out. I have some of my neck collars that you use for sunscreen to block out the sun. And I had a couple of those that I would wear on the airplane because they would force me to put a mask on. And then it got to a point where that wasn't good enough. I had to have one of those masks. And so So
It was
so
brutal.
my wife went out and bought some material that's a mesh. It looked like it was solid, but we could completely breathe through it. She made these masks for us so we could go on the plane and have these masks and still breathe. It was just the lunacy that we live through is unbearable. And
100%.
the thing that really my heart breaks for are the kids who lost their graduation.
Yep.
Who
Well, the kids
couldn't go to their memorial service.
Yep.
Didn't get to go to prom. Who finished school on a laptop, and they're the kids that generation. My heart breaks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I realize is that God allows us to go through these things in order for us to call to Him, and He reaches out and He embraces us and He brings them to Him. And the reason I bring that up is in Atlanta, Georgia, every year they have a Passion Conference. And last year in 2024, if you want to see the most touching thing you can ever imagine, go to YouTube and search Passion 2024 Agnus Dei, and there is a 20-minute video that you can watch. And for 20 minutes, the generation that has a 2 or 3 second attention span before they swipe left, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3 seconds. For 20 minutes, they're all singing a cappella Agnus Dei, and this is a stadium filled 40,000 people. You have to be between the age of 18 and 25 to go to this Passion Conference.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it is. I encourage everyone listening to me to go and watch that video. And if you're not crying in the first 10 minutes, I'll be shocked. You don't have a heart if you're not crying, realizing that this is a stadium filled with the kids who went through that. And that's because by going through that, they developed character. And as a result of developing the character, because we don't get character simply by having everything laid out for us, not going through the tough times. We get character by going through the fire. The hammer isn't forged until it goes through the fire. Yep. And that's the way we are as human beings and as people. We've got to go through the fire. And COVID was a tremendous refining fire for America, for the world, because again, God always wins. He wanted us to go through this. And the fact that Trump didn't go into the White House in 2020 is the most amazing thing in the world. It was absolutely fantastic. God knew exactly what He was doing.
Yep.
I mean, he wouldn't have had Congress behind him. He wouldn't have had the Senate behind him. He'd be wrestling with and trying to figure out how to deal with his cabinet. The FBI was this way. He didn't have Maha. He was completely overwhelmed. And in 2020, he would have been the lame duck for 4 years. And do you know who's the president now?
We're stuck with which God help us. If it could be worse than Biden, that might be.
I think you're absolutely right. But again, who wins? Do the leftists win? Do the communists win? Do the woke win? No. God always wins. And if you're not on God's side, you're on the wrong side. You're gonna lose. You may feel like you're winning for a moment. You may be on the having a larger bank account. But guess what? Life isn't about who has the biggest bank account. It's not the one with the most toys who wins. It's the one who has the satisfaction and the joy and the realization that we are on the winning side and that God rules. And it's when we call upon Him that we find our salvation, because we are fighting a battle. I opened my book of God Always Wins with Ephesians 6:12. I'm going to read it to you because I for some reason I can never remember this, but Ephesians 6:12 says, For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual forces of evil in heavenly realms. That's the battle we're fighting. But we don't see that battle. We just see the battle that we're currently in. We don't see life as God sees it. We just see the backside of the tapestry. We don't see the other side. And so I've probably been talking too much. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Reverend, I've enjoyed the heck out of your perspective.
Hold back. I'm sorry.
Well, no. Listen, I have enjoyed it. And you're right. I mean, you see what you're saying is the stuff that I've seen and that I've lived through and that I've fought. I got to be honest. Next time I get to Orange County, I'm gonna see if I can't show up at your church and and listen to a service, because it's interesting, because you're speaking truth. You're speaking it without fear. To me, so God gives us all our gifts, right? He made me to fight. That's what I'm built for. I'm built for fighting, and that's an interesting thing, because that means that you take punches and you give punches, and you just survive through that, and you accept who you are, and that's. But I don't see a lot of people willing to do that, and particularly the cloth. And one of the things that I think is really important here, and I really want to stress, is I'm interested in your perspective on this as a reverend. Yeah. So I look at the Christianity, and I think it's one aspect of it I think has been really, really intentionally misconstrued. It's this idea that Christianity is somehow this weak pacifist religion where you're supposed to just take whatever they give to you in the world. And it always comes back to turn the other cheek. Well, if you read it, and you can correct me all you want. I mean, you're the expert here. But if you read that little passage there, he said, I'm pretty sure Christ said, if your neighbor sins against you, turn the other cheek, right? So if your neighbor sins against you, you turn him and you forgive, and you do what your best to get, right? Now, he also says, though, elsewhere, that there'll be a time where we need the sword. He also elsewhere is flipping tables and braiding whips. He also elsewhere says it would be better for a millstone to be around your neck and cast into the ocean than to harm a child. Christ wanted you to forgive your brother and sister. But your brother and sister in Christ, not someone who's evil and doing something to someone else. I'm of the belief that we have a moral duty to stand for those that can't stand for themselves, to try and stop evil when it's occurring elsewhere. Yes, we forgive people who make mistakes and who sin against us, but by no means are we as Christians supposed to back down and cower and not say anything. So when I hear a guy like you talking about, hey, this isn't right, well, that's the foundation of Christianity to me, because if you can't fight something that's wrong, then you're accepting and condoning it. And I think it's a misunderstanding of the teachings of Christ. Yes, he wanted peace and love, but he also knew that we live in a fallen world where sin does abound and where there's bad things that happen. And if you don't stand against those bad things, especially for the innocent, then you're complicit in it. You're a part of it. And that's I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
You're right on. If you go back to the revolution of the United States of America, you have what were called the black robes. The black robes were the pastors who literally at the end of the service took their robes off, picked up their guns, and said, "Let's go get them." And they're known as the black robe pastors. Yeah. And I was not raised in a Christian pacifist home. I was actually raised in a very, I wouldn't say militant, but you stand up for Christ, you stand up for ethics and morality, and you fight evil. It goes all the way back to my great uncle, who was ordained in, and this is kind of fascinating. My great uncle was ordained after he graduated from Princeton Seminary in 1920. And then he went off, he hopped on I guess would be a steamship in 1920 to go to China and was a missionary in China. And he was developing a school, and he carried these, in order to do that, they had to get permission to move these Buddhist idols out of this building that they rented. And they got permission, and they moved it to a warehouse. As they were moving it through the streets of China, the Buddhas are falling apart, and their ears are falling down. Their hand is falling down there, And everybody in the streets watching this is just cracking up. They're just laughing hysterically. That's my great uncle. So he's not a pacifist. He's not a wimp. He's very adventurous. He puts his hand on my father's head and says, "You should be a preacher when you grow up." When he was 5 years old, he came back from China, and my dad took that from a calling from God. And in 1950, you pay attention to these years, 1920 to 1950, my dad graduates from seminary and is ordained in 1950. 30 years later, in 1980, I graduate from seminary. I'm ordained in the ministry. 30 years later, 2010, my son graduates from seminary and was ordained in the ministry. None of this was planned. It was just how it worked. I don't know how you get that 30-year increment of 4 generations, but that's what happened in my family. And my family, if the whole idea of the pastor is the pastors in those churches were the leaders historically. I come out of the Dutch Reformed Church in America, meaning that we are the oldest denomination on the continent of America. We came here in 1626 to an island called New Amsterdam, and everyone knows that today as Manhattan. And our little denomination has 5 churches on Manhattan, all of which today, unfortunately, are woke. They totally buy into all of this stuff. But our history is one of pioneers and people who go out there and conquer the future. That's why Norman Peale, who is in our denomination, came out with the whole concept of positive thinking. And my dad changed his whole mission when he was ordained in 1950. Communism was a big thing, and his preaching and his platform and his identity was fighting communism. But then Norman Peale comes out with positive thinking, and my dad goes, "Wow, that's much better. I can build a church with that easier." And I don't think that's exactly the thoughts that went through his mind, but he was called by God to change from positive thinking to possibility thinking. And that's how he spent his ministry. And then I wrote a book called Possibility Living, which helps put handles on this thing. But the whole concept of being a complete pacifist does not fit into my denomination or my upbringing in my family. Pacifism is we want peace. Don't get me wrong.
Of course,
we want peace.
We long for it,
but we believe we have to fight for it. We have to work for it. We have to make it. We have to make it a reality. It just doesn't happen because of what I read earlier from Ephesians 6:12, where this is a spiritual battle, not an earthly battle. And as being a spiritual battle, we have to put on our spiritual armor and face the devil.
100%, 100%. And you mentioned your denomination, so I more confession. So I'm Catholic. You have to forgive the guy that they call the Pope. I didn't like him at all. But I also I've got I got a big strike against me. I'm a lawyer, so I'm not sure if I still have a soul. I think when you go to the law school, you have to sell your soul to go there. I'm joking.
Well, you know the standing joke about going to heaven as a lawyer.
Oh,
you don't?
Not happening.
Oh, so the Billy Graham and the lawyer and the Pope die all at the same time. They go to the pearly gates, and Paul and Peter goes, "Hallelujah!" And he gives the lawyer and the others a big hug. And he goes, "Let me take you to your home that we have prepared here for you." He starts off with the lawyer, and there's this huge, beautiful mansion. And he goes, "Here's your home." And he goes, thank you, Peter." And he goes into his mansion. Then Peter takes the Pope down a little down a little ways and says, "Here's your shack." He goes, "A shack? Well, why does the attorney get a mansion and I get a shack?" And Peter goes, "Well, He's the first attorney we've had come.
that would be about right. I got to tell you, you ain't lying. It's really funny to me. And I frequently joke, I'm a lawyer, I got no soul. But I will tell you, in all seriousness, I spent a lot of time reading the book over my life, and I'm talking about the book, and the only real law that matters, I guess, right? And as I've read it, I've learned a few different things. Of course, I can talk a lot about what's in there. I'm pretty good at that. But what I've really learned is that I don't know much. And I'll talk to the scholars. Every once in a while, I'll read some of the philosophy that, some of the great philosophers of, days of yore and all that sort of stuff. And you got the different biblical scholars from the different denominations, this, that, and other. And I don't have the capacity to think beyond do unto others, love God, and try and seek forgiveness for all those mistakes I keep making, because I do keep making them. Beyond that, I think it's all very important, but I can't. It's just not that. So I got to be honest with you. What I do, and I am very strongly of the belief that when it comes to our Christian brethren, I'll let the people who know more than me debate about which way is the perfect way to do it. If you follow Christ, you're on Team Christ, as far as I'm concerned. Right. And I don't get any farther than that. My friend Ibn Ali is a pastor. He's Muhammad Ali's nephew, actually, and he's a pastor, and and we've done some ministry stuff together, and which is interesting because I have no right to get anywhere near ministry. Like I said, I'm a lawyer, but we've done some of that together, and it's an incredible thing because what we decided, and he is trained as a pastor, but we decided to say, listen, I don't have the capacity to make a saint better. And there's a lot of people who are out there that are far more saintly than me. So I said, why don't we focus on, let's hang out with the tax collectors and prostitutes. Those are my kind of people anyways, because they're as bad as a lawyer, almost. And so let's work from the bottom up. And so that's kind of the approach that I've taken. I just have never, I appreciate the different denominations. And some of my friends can talk to me about that, but it's an interesting thing. And I'm curious what you think about that, because as a layman, I've tried to bear good fruit. I really have. Whether it's succeeded is debatable, but I've tried. But like I said, my focus when I come to any sort of good fruit I'm bearing is my kids, of course, and then the tax collectors and prostitutes, because those are the ones that I figure I might have a shot at helping. I don't figure I can do much more than that.
Well, Tom, there's no way you can ever do enough to earn your way into heaven. It just doesn't happen.
That's true.
It's Romans 10:9.
It's already been paid for.
You profess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that He rose from the grave, you will be saved.
Yep.
Period. That's it. So, oops, I'm sorry, knocked my camera over.
Oh, that's okay.
So it's that simple. Everything else is in the process of sanctification. So it's a process. Meanwhile, you can, no matter how hard you try, you're never going to convert anybody. All you can do is witness and share, and it's up to the Holy Spirit of God. God does all the converting. He's the one who calls everyone to Him, and you witness and you share, and people will or will not believe. And you could give all the evidence in the world. It's overwhelming evidence, and there's always the possibility that one juror is going to go, no, I don't believe it.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, is that true?
100%.
And as a result of that, it doesn't matter. So our job as Christians is to live the best we can, and realizing that we're going to fall short, but we live in the grace of Jesus Christ, and we can't earn our way into heaven. So we profess Him as the Lord of our lives with our mouth. We literally say, Jesus is Lord. Jesus is my Lord. Or as I said in the beginning of this talk we're having, as St. Peter said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. We recognize who He is. We accept Him as the Lord of our life. And and from there we continue to live the best we can, and that's all we can do. We rest ourselves in the grace of Jesus and the full knowledge of God.
Well, that is the number one mission, and at the end of the day, there's not anything else that we can do that's more important than that. I seek every day to try and do that a little bit better. I fail a lot of the days, but if we can talk about it, and this is why it's wonderful. Like we spend a lot of time, and I have to really. My job is to beat bad guys, and so we use the show for that purpose, right? We do this. Good. We attack. We talk about. We go after. We question everything. We don't trust. I don't trust any man. I trust God, but not any man. Right. We question. We push, and that's the purpose of this show. That's the purpose of my work, right? My work is finding ways to stop, and that's why we do it. But every now and then, I get to have someone on, someone like you. Or I get to, to talk a little bit about this. And it's a wonderful feeling for me because when your job is to break things, which is basically what I do for a living, it feels so good when you get to build something. And, I just pray that someone will hear this show today and that they'll hear your words and they'll find some solace in it and they'll find some peace in it. And they'll find some comfort, because if you can make a broken, evil lawyer feel okay, you're doing all right, right? And that's really the core of it. So we're running up on the end here, Reverend. God always wins. I want everybody to do it. By the way, everybody, make sure you're checking. Here it is, Robert Schuller Ministries. It's drschuller.org. drschuller.org. Make sure you're supporting the Reverend Schuller. Listen. You've heard this. You've heard the Reverend talk to you for the last hour. He's tolerated me. He's done. Just, I love what you're saying. I love your willingness to speak truth. drschuller.org. Make sure you're checking out his new book. You can find it on that website. God Always Wins. And if you're in SoCal and you got the time, make sure you're checking it out. I assure you, next time I get to Orange County, on a weekend, I'm gonna give you a call and see if we can't catch up and check a service out because
I love it.
It sounds like in fact, I might even come out and see I might even hit you up and see if I can't broadcast from there, just to tell people what you do. I really appreciate it, Reverend.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate what you're doing. We need more lawyers like you. And I'm just honored to be able to have this time to talk with you.
Well, I appreciate it, Reverend. I hope you'll come back and join us again very soon.
I'd love to.
Yeah. Well, you are welcome. You've got an open invitation anytime. We got a whole lot of things that we didn't get to talk about yet. But I love your perspective on things. So I would love to have you back. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we will be back very